get upset on the internet. You're a salted dog.
Hi everybody, welcome back to Retrostation1989. I'm Commander Dan, commander and lone human inhabitant aboard the Retro Station, and this is License to Play. It's a show where we take a look at retro video games and determine whether or not they're worth playing anymore. And I can feel it in the air now, folks. Gotta tell you, it's back to school time. Now, being aboard a sophisticated alien space station means I can't exactly feel the fall weather, of course, but there's just something about this part of the year that has that feel, you know? Buying school supplies from a list of items that are either useless for the majority of the school year or are so archaic and anachronistic that it seems like it might just be a scam concocted by some kind of government scheme, to keep pencils and paper companies in business here in the modern age. Just reminds us, that it's time for learning.
Do I need to go to school? I don't think I've ever been.
Hey, you know what? I'm not sure, pal. On the one hand, you seem to be fully functional insofar as that goes, but maybe you would benefit from some education and general knowledge. Margot?
Yes, Commander?
Splat asked a great question. Do you think that he'd get something out of a little bit of schooling?
I would think Splat would benefit from education, Commander.
And, I guess the other question would be, would you be willing to...
Critical interruption. It is beyond my patience banks and courtesy parameters to put up with Splat long enough to educate him on anything. Commander, what you ask of me is impossible. No offense, Splat.
None comprehended.
Aw, heck. Well, is there a way we can get Splat a tutor, maybe? The more I think about it, the more this sounds like an experiment we can both get behind. I mean, what's the worst that could happen? He'll come back knowing a lot more and be far less, interruptive. Here, scan this movie from my youth. An instructional film called Back to School. Check out the teachers in that movie and extrapolate from there. And with the other movies that we have in the collection on VHS, just pick the best teacher for a mind like our little Splat.
Affirmative, Commander.
And hey, Space Pirates, since we're all going back to school, I think I'll give you a history lesson. A lesson in Earth history, and we'll start with something easy. Like Vietnam. No, wait, don't go anywhere. No scrolling. Seriously, it's hard as hell to come up with reasons to talk about these games, even when I really, really want to. Especially about games that I played as a youngster, and at the time, thought nothing of. So the Vietnam War was a tumultuous time for the United States. Everyone knows this. And it was actually never called a war during its prosecution, to prevent the stink of the term war being put on any action that was taken by our dickwad politicians, and the horrors of war to be avoided at all costs with the fumble, basically, that was the Korean War. We won that one, but just by the skin of our teeth. It's kind of a draw, and we weren't expecting that after the triumph we felt after World War II. With Vietnam, the entire thing was brought back to us. The horrors of war were brought to our families in real time. And the facts of war were reported with flat analysis. There was no spin saying who was right and who was wrong, just body counts, what was happening next, and bodies and bags coming back on the evening news every night. The war was not a popular one. The backlash for what was a purposeless political wank job for the war hawks among politicians in America was pretty severe. I mean, it almost destroyed our country, to be honest. And it was shitty. It disillusioned the American populace about what they thought they knew about our standing in the world. It prompted a closer look at our politicians and led to the resignation of that criminal asshat Richard Nixon and the creation of a new news media that glorifies war, glorifies blind patriotism and proud ignorance, rather than telling the people the truth about the crap going on everywhere. It really screwed up our country. It screwed up everything. Vietnam sucked ass, and those who survived it did what any sane person would do. Huh? What's that? Oh, did they become activists? Spending time, effort, and money to bring their wisdom to the people, affect some change both politically and societally? Well, no. They just made movies. That's it. They made kind of, dramatic movies about what happened. Just like we did in World War II, only way more strident and constantly artistically stark and less patriotic. Oh, and we were made to put a spin on those who participated, like an Audie Murphy movie through the lens of Rosemary's Baby, and kind of perpetuated an easy stereotype that lasted, hell, even to right the hell now. You might think that the Vietnam War was contentious, and it was, and hotly debated, and yes, it was, and a flashpoint for political radicalism, absolutely, especially for veterans. Now, this next part's going to sting for everybody, but I did the research on this. I looked it up. All right? There is almost no reality to the historicity of veterans returning and being called baby killer en masse. There are anecdotal pieces from people who say that shit, and that didn't happen. Or being spat on in the airports as they came home wounded. By the way, generally the military doesn't fly you commercials, so I'm not sure how that really happens, okay? But look it up for yourself. You can look it up for yourself. You're a big boy or girl space pirate. I wouldn't lie to you. So looking it up, I was trying to look it up because I felt that was what was actually happening. Not really. So where that came from, and here's what's really messed up, it comes from the G.I. Joe comics. Prior to the Hasbro taking over and rebooting G.I. Joe, it came from the comics. That's in the comics. A cartoon hippie spits on a cartoon soldier. And from right-wing pro-war pundits at the time. The beginnings of a certain type of news media saying that was what that was happening to our vets and we should be behind the war and our vets. It was basically, bullshit. They were using that lie as cover for their policies, reducing or removing entirely the benefits for returning wounded vets, or vets suffering from Agent Orange syndrome, or worse, post-traumatic stress disorder. The one news article I could find regarding spitting on a vet was a pro-Nixon war advocate spitting on a vet protesting the Republican National Convention. You look it up. That's the one. That's the one time where you'll find that somebody actually did that and it was reported on. Total hog shit. Anyway, let's just talk about the movies that came out after anyway. The reality is super sad and just pisses people off. And even right now, you probably clicked off your damn video and I've just screwed myself for any new subscribers. Kind of like the movies, but not as entertaining. The Vietnam War was a bummer beyond bummers. That's known. But let's check in and see how it's going with educating our own little Sputnik, Splat. Margot?
Yes, Commander?
So, do we got the education holograms ready for Splat?
Affirmative, Commander. And chose from our stock of VHS scans you've provided to give them the very best teacher about today's evaluation.
Amazing. Well, we got Splat on the road to learning about the war and becoming educated. Let's take a look at the license for today's evaluation, taking us way back, all the way back to 1986. You still there? Now, I know my space pirates are still there. You know who I am, and you know how we do up here on the Retro Station. We keeps it real. But if you're new and you did stick around, thank you so much. I do appreciate it. Now, the smack center of the 80s, we had puffy laces, Saturday morning cartoons, and lots of movies that just became franchises. But again, that's what became of everything in the 80s. It kind of got franchised out. Ghostbusters, Back to the Future, Mad Max, all of which, by the end of the 90s, would become huge broccoli farts of an NES game, some of which we've talked about already, and some we will talk about sometime soon. And in the first year of the NES, starting in September of 86, movie licenses were blazing onto the console. Friday the 13th, Jaws, we've talked about those, and those were just LJN. Everyone wanted that juicy movie license video game money. Space Pirates, I am not even kidding. So companies across the board would look for movies to base their video games on. I mentioned Back to the Future and Jaws and Ghostbusters. Easy to kind of think how a video game could be based on those, right? Or even a pinball game. And so Ocean, a huge licensor of movie properties, so good at their job, their microcomputer version of RoboCop got translated to an actual arcade game from their home version. That being said, the 80s had scores of licenses to base video games on from the moving pictures, and Ocean, prior to the victory that was RoboCop, chose this to make a video game about instead. I have to use the video game soundtrack here because the flick is filled with great era-appropriate music, and of course Fortunate Son by Creedence, which is one of my favorite songs ever, but we'll get this video hidden from new folks seeing it, which would, checking my space dictionary here, right, it would snack on Ferentine Nebula space donkey buttholes. So you get to see it because I'm using music from the video game. But yeah, this is Platoon. Platoon's director, Oliver Stone, has directed some of my favorite movies. JFK, Natural Born Killers, and yes, Platoon. I love Platoon. Platoon is one of his major successes. It was a genre-defining flick. That genre being war is hell, Vietnam was double hell, and we need to respect our vets, you jackasses genre of movies. Which spun out movies like More on the 4th of July, even Missing in Action 2 takes place in Vietnam during the era, and Full Metal Jacket, which never got a video game license but was far superior to lots of other Vietnam movies. And if I were setting them side by side, I like Full Metal Jacket better, but I love Platoon because it's about the Army and not Marines. Sorry, Marines. Semper Fi, but I'm an Army brat. Platoon tells the story of Oliver Stone's actual platoon during Vietnam. It won Best Picture because it was an authentic, heart-wrenching portrayal of the realities of war. A vision of Vietnam that fought back against those pro-war patriotic flicks that had come before. Wikipedia says that it was specifically the John Wayne film The Green Berets that ignited Oliver Stone's passion and anger for that kind of movie. And while I don't know about that, I do know Platoon's story is a lot for a video game based on that movie, and that content is a lot for a video game put onto the Nintendo Entertainment System. I mean, a lot. Did I say a lot? I think I'm going to say a lot again, just so you understand that it is a lot. You should probably know that there's going to be Vietnam content in the show when you see that we're reviewing Platoon. That's why we have thumbnails. I allow that to be the content warning. But in this case, I will say that Platoon is a lot. I'm going to say a lot here, a lot. Because it's a lot. Okay. That said, it's the story of Charlie Sheen as Taylor, a freshly minted recruit entering what the soldiers call the shit. And he has a naive view of an army at war, especially the war in Nam. And it tells a harrowing tale about a platoon murking their own sarge. It's dark material. There are soul-scorching moments of racial prejudice, realistic and paranoia-inducing moments of sudden violence. This movie is a lot. It's a lot. It's more grounded, serious, and dramatic than, say, this war game, for example. Or maybe this? That's what the NES had for quote-unquote war games. I think you get my drift, but no, our pals at Ocean, they knew Platoon needed to be retold in video game form, but for tweens and middle schoolers on their Nintendo Entertainment System.
Statement. Now, I think you are all ready to learn, and this should be enough to serve us as an introduction to the education system of Earthlings.
Oh boy! Ready to learn, Miss Margot?
Clarification. I am not your teacher. Today your teacher will be Staff Sergeant Barnes, from the classic Earthling film Platoon.
Attention! This is Sergeant Louis Pasteur Benjamin Button Barnes, and I'm here to teach you today. So, are you ready to learn? And the only thing you're going to learn about today is what it's like to be in the shit, because you are most definitely in the shit right now. So, I got one question for you, boys. What would you do if you were caught deep in the shit?
Excuse me, how deep, Sergeant Barnes? My legs are only a couple inches long.
Hip deep in the shit, boy. Aren't you prepared, meatball?
I'm prepared. I brought my Big Bird dictionary.
Oh, Big Bird. Well, this ain't Fantasyland, Big Bird. This is the shit. Where you from, Softbatch?
Me? I'm not sure. I was originally a rectal polyp with eyes and teeth.
My God. That means you were born in the shit.
Well, sure, I guess. Are we gonna learn about shapes now?
You're about to learn about the shape of my boot going in your butt. And also, colors. We're gonna start with colors. Everybody get your books out.
Ocean Software is a UK publishing house which has, since its heyday in the 80s, since been folded into the Namco Bandai conglomerate. They started as a clothing company and morphed from a company creating knockoff arcade-style games for the UK Micros into a licensing house for major film productions. From RoboCop to Navy SEALs.
Ooh, Navy SEALs!
From McKids to Lethal Weapon. Ocean made a couple of my favorite games for the NES, Darkman and Jurassic Park. And their list of hits on the Amiga, the graphics-pushing, cutting-edge home computer is long. And Platoon was going to be that company's answer to CinemaWare's incredible Amiga games that gave the home gamer a theatrical feel. Games like Rocket Ranger and the blockbuster Defender of the Crown. So Platoon would be their swing at a cinematic home game. How do they do? Well, it was a favorite around our house when I was growing up, Space Pirates, but that doesn't mean a whole hell of a lot. I've said before, my favorite game on the SNES is Friday the 13th, and it's tied with Jekyll and Hyde, so my taste may be in question here. So let's take a look at the game itself and find out if Platoon, by Ocean Games, has a license to play. What we're seeing here is Platoon for the Amiga 500, the game that Platoon for the NES was ported from. The colors and graphics were cutting edge for the time, and honestly, the game is harder than Arcturine Long Division. I have tried playing this a few times, and since the Amiga is a single button controller, some of the segments are damn near unplayable, committing the cardinal sin of video games. Up to jump. A is jump on the NES. Do you understand that? That's what it is. If your game is feeling saucy, maybe you can make the jump the B button, like Milon Secret Castle or Track and Field 2. Look, it's weird, but it's a button. When you press up to jump, especially in a game where jumping like a jackrabbit is the only defense viable to keep you alive in the jungle warfare of Vietnam, up to jump is an offense that's liable to get you fragged by your own platoon. Okay? And all versions of this game do that crap. And while the European gaming print outlets praise the game up and down its ass, the controls are, in actuality, a pile of Kossorian Mega Hog balls. Okay? It sucks. While the NES version is a step down graphics-wise, difficulty-wise, I gotta say it's not terrible. It's hard, and you'd think that the war that robbed America of its innocence and the film based on the same wouldn't translate to the small screen, but this game hits all the major elements of the film, and while it's harder to decipher than a Toydarian lease agreement, and more difficult in terms of hardness, harder than a titanium-plated marble countertop, much like Friday the 13th, it can be beaten, and deserves a good look. What you need for the game is a walkthrough, or in this case, a scanner copy of the manual from the Commodore 64 version. The NES manual is very bare bones. Also, an understanding of what was going on in terms of gaming at the time, especially in America, will explain why their manual was bare bones, and you can try this game without too much pain. A brief note on games at that time, what I mean by that. At that time, Nintendo of America was suing rental companies, like mom and pop rental stores, because they wanted to make it illegal for you to rent video games. And while their efforts didn't succeed, of course, we're able to rent anything, well, back in the day we were, they thought, well, we'll make the copyright on them, since you can't copyright software, only the way a piece of software was made. They copywritten and put their copyright on the manual, saying that you can't rent out the manual. Which is why manuals were written that way, so that you wouldn't be able to beat the game without the manual most times, because you wouldn't be able to rent the game. You'd have to go buy it to get a manual. It was pretty janky, but I guarantee you it's probably why AVGN was angry in the first place, because they never let you have a real manual or even a good copy of it. Now, that being said, get a walkthrough, get a copy of the manual. Especially the C64 manual, because that has a map, and it's awesome. And if you want to know more about Nintendo's war on Blockbuster, basically, and us here in the United States wanting to rent video games before we buy them, check out the Gaming Historian's video on that, and I'll put the link in the description down below. So the controls. Up to jump. You know what? Please don't throw your controller, and don't stop playing the video game just yet. Alright, it's up to jump. Down goes down a path. Left and right move you left and right. A fires your rifle, your M16, and B throws a grenade, but due to the number of tripwires on your trek through the first two sections of this game, you're going to want to get used to hopping around like a startled kangaroo pretending the floor is lava. I mean, the Kong use more improvised explosive traps in this game than all armies throughout the history of the modern era of warfare. I mean, everything has a tripwire on it. They're on your boots, they're from your helmet to your shoe, from your butt to the floor. It's everything's got a tripwire, okay? Just keep jumping. The HUD shows the game itself, which shows your morale, which represents your platoon's level of this is bullshit. If you lose all your morale, the game is over. Basically, what reduces morale is shooting innocent villagers. So, don't commit war crimes and you won't lose any morale. The second thing is hits, your hit points, of which you have 5 and 5 lives, essentially. That's the 5 members of your platoon. But there are medical supplies in the village and in the tunnels on the next level to repair that damage. Then there's status, which shows how many soldiers are left in your platoon, and ammo represents how much of your fight over here in the shit is approved of by the folks back home, and overall how you'll be treated by civilians once you return. No, it's just ammunition. It's literally just little baby bullets. You can see that. Alright. The first level represents Taylor, Charlie Sheen's character in the movie, winning, and 5 men. I'm sorry, whenever I say Charlie Sheen, I want to say that, and I don't know what that is. Maybe it's just the meme in me. Alright, and 5 men out on point doing recon and picking up a set of explosives to destroy a bridge leading into a local village to prevent themselves from getting attacked from the rear. This will help you get through the first 2 sections of the game with the fewest lives lost. Once you follow the map to the explosives and blow up the bridge, you head into the village for Section 2 of Stage 1. Now, don't just wander into the buildings, okay? Follow this. From left to right, as you head into the village, ignore that because you're heading in from the right. The game tries to disorient you right away. So, from right to left, the buildings contain a trap, either Dick All of Nothing or a med kit, either bupkis or medical supplies, the building with the map, and the trapdoor into the second level, the tunnels. The last building contains delicious candy. No, it doesn't. It contains another goddamn trap, because this friendly village also prevents burglars with booby traps like Home Alone, only with claymore mines and more explosions. Now, this portion of the game isn't in the film from Section 2, because Level 2, Stage 2, it's in the movie, is not an action sequence, okay? It's an attempted SA, I guess. I'm not going to say the phrase, I don't want to get my video clonked off again, and torturing villagers. It's messed up, which I imagine would have dropped Charlie's morale to 0, and that'd be credits for the poor tiger-blooded bastard winning. Where did that come from? I don't know why I keep saying that. Stage 2 is a lot like Phantasy Star's controls on the Master System in the dungeon parts, with occasional ambushes by attackers. It's tense, and the map is easy to follow. It's on the screen the whole time, making this level one of the best in the game. You know what? If they had the resources and extra chips available to make this the game, finding village bases and going through the tunnels, it would have been an all-timer. This level's tough, but beatable if you make it a point to grab the medical supplies. Get a walkthrough, like I said, and you'll be straight. Stage 3 is represented in the movie. At this point in the movie, Taylor has accused Sergeant Barnes of war crimes, and they have had a conflict, and Barnes nearly cuts his eye out. So Taylor and another man, Francis, are sent into a dugout for Overwatch, which is a move by their commander, Sergeant Bad Boy of Karate Mike Barnes, to get them destroyed after Taylor suggests fragging them for his war crimes in Stage 2 of the movie version. This is not an easy level. You have to launch flares that you need to have found in the last level. By the way, you have to find the flares in the last level, find a walkthrough, like I said. And this is the kind of thing the game does, which makes it notoriously hard. But you need those to see the NVA coming in and attacking, which in the film ends with an NVA sapper destroying the headquarters and killing off most of Barnes's men. That would be the contingent of the soldiers in the platoon who were okay with doing all the crazy crap they did back in the village. Since I want this video to be seen, I'm going to show you a piece of a video game rather than the movie to represent what a sapper is. And this is from the Lord of the Rings, The Two Towers video game on Xbox, which I have not yet reviewed, but probably will in the future. Okay, there. That's what a sapper is. A guy with explosives that runs in and blows himself up. So, Stage 4 is also in the film, but only takes like a couple seconds in the film. In the film, it's just a confrontation between Barnes and Taylor, and Barnes mocks Taylor to his face after killing Elias, played by Willem Dafoe, who's the good sergeant who is backing Taylor and says, yeah, we don't commit war crimes, we're actually good people. And Barnes is like, no, you do what you have to do to survive. And in this case, it's just a moment, and then Barnes gets fragged by Taylor. In the game, it requires you to hunt him down and blow him away in a dugout trench. Now here's the ending screen of Platoon, and probably my biggest problem with this game, it's Taylor flagging down a helo and giving us the good old America, thumbs up soldier, well done at war, you warred so good, I'm happy to see you, and even though I kind of look like Meg Ryan here instead of Charlie Sheen, winning, I'm sorry, I don't know why I keep doing that. Giving us the good old US of A thumbs up. What's messed up is that this pose represents something way different in the movie. The movie ends tragically. Taylor, Charlie Sheen, winning, actually losing, is wailing on the ground at the horrors of war and has given up. And his hollow expression is not a thumbs up. Okay? As he's being taken home because of his wounds, and seeing that Barnes' chud buddy O'Brien is now taking control of the platoon, implying that the cycle of horror and war crimes is going to continue for more young men coming in, just churning and killing civilians and all of that horror, and leaving Taylor with questions of faith, morality, and also a question of whether this whole game was worth it. If the central message of anti-war and the complexity of Vietnam was just going to be whitewashed and farted on and left with this stupid thumbs up picture? I gotta say, that's a deep question, but it also leaves us with one major question. So, does Platoon for the Nintendo Entertainment System by SUNSOFT have a license to play? Yeah, no. I gotta say, absolutely no. No, because, well, it's not that the graphics are bad or the game is really hard. I mean, the graphics are fine and the game is hard, but no, the problem with this game is that it's not a representation of Oliver Stone's property. And on the dismount they had on this one, wow, that thumbs up. That's the very thing Oliver Stone created this whole movie for. He hated the idea that glorifying war was somehow great. War is hell. And we want to make sure that everyone knows that. I gotta say no, that doesn't get a license to play. I'm not going to destroy it. I don't destroy my games, and I don't often do anything extreme with them if I can ever help it, because I like having my games. I leave them on my shelf as kind of a reminder to see where I've been. Now, but I gotta say that I deny this game a license to play. That doesn't mean you shouldn't play it, though. Try it out. If you can ignore that last 10 minutes or so of your life where you beat the last level and then you have to watch that complete nonsense of an ending, then maybe you'll find some enjoyment out of it. And if you're a fan of the movie, check it out.
Update Commander, it seems to be going well for the Scudders and Splat. However, I believe we need to give them further lessons to ensure a full education experience.
Yeah, and it also keeps Splat out of your hair and out of trouble.
Affirmative, Commander.
Well, folks, that's it for this week, and it looks like next week we're going to continue the miseducation of Little Splat. Apparently, more than anything, I got to let you guys know that you guys have been so great. Thank you so much for understanding my little brief absence. We had some passing away in the family and a couple of big adjustments made around here at the old retro station, but you'll find that they are for the better. Now, I have a theme song for the end of the show. The closing theme song is going to be changed. So the first opening theme song, and my favorite one, is 2D6's Leave No Evidence. But my new outro theme song, well, you give it a listen and you tell me what you think down below. Or if you'd like to have your letter read here on the Retro Station, send me a letter at Retrostation1989 @gmail.com. You can follow me at DipSwitchDan over on Twitter or over on Twitch at Retrostation1989, where we're going to be playing through some retro games soon, and we'll probably take a look at some modern games too. But if you just want to hang out, that's also a good place. The last stream I did here was the last stream I'm going to do on YouTube for a while. It's kind of tanking my channel, and I'm going to start just deleting those videos. So if you want copies of those videos, I'd download them or copy them or whatever you'd like to do. But they're going to be going away so I can make sure that our channel gets seen by everybody. In the meantime, no matter what I've said in the past or what I will say in the future, remember to always, always, always stay retro. Peace.
Margot is spotting a retro game.